So I'm glad everyone could come out here. I'm using my notes this time. The first thing I want to say is take as many pictures and videos as you can this time. There's a lot of stuff that says you can't. That's all for copyright material. So put as much of this stuff as you can on the internet. We'd love to have people see this. So I'm going to start with a little story from my last show. My last show, I practiced and practiced. I had my fog machines and everything all set up. Oh, you're too far. Right there. Perfect, buddy. We're going to talk through this. So, and I thought everything went wrong, but it seemed like not a lot of people noticed. The one thing I didn't practice was my script and asking people questions. So that's one thing I did. In fact, I practiced saying this 20 times. So the last event, I didn't really go over what I wanted to go over. So this one, I want to make sure everyone knows the 4 things I want to go over most. My main 4 things are going to be my journey on where I got to where I am today, my struggle, my why, and my how. My journey I went over last time. I got pretty in-depth with it. How many people were at the last show? Thank you guys so much. One of my biggest worries was people would come to the last show and then not come to the second one. So thank you guys so much for coming out here again. My next one was my struggle. I went over it a little bit. We're going to go over that with the 3 speakers. So that's going to be pretty easy. My why is freedom. And I think most people that start a small business, a lot of you guys, how many of you guys own a business here? Run a business, work for yourself? Right, so the main reason you guys wanted to do that was for freedom, am I right? You wanted to be able to take off whatever day you wanted off, be there for your kids, you wanted to just do whatever you want all the time and have freedom of yourself. So that's going to be my why. My how we're going to cover later as well. So the reason I discovered my why, I'm going to tell a little story. Man, you're good, Joey. You can set my timer and everything. This guy's good. So I remember when I was like 18 years old, I was in a death metal band. And I know, you guys are supposed to laugh at that. And I remember I worked at a restaurant. All 4 of us worked at the same restaurant. And I asked for a day off. We booked a show in Aberdeen. And I was so excited. And I went to my boss and I said, hey, I need this day off. It's a Saturday. Can I have the day off? They said, no. I was like, what do you mean? I cover people's shifts all the time. So you can't cover my shift in 90 days and give me a 3-month head start. She said no. I said, that's fine, I'm leaving anyway. I'm doing what I want. So the day came and I rolled up to work in my 1998 black Chevy Astro van with a U-Haul because I couldn't afford a trailer. And noon came around and me and all 4 guys, we just left. And I mean, if I was the manager, I would have been pretty pissed off. But I knew that I couldn't, at that young age, listen to someone else tell me what I can't do. We live in America, which I think is the greatest country on earth. Would you guys agree? I practiced saying that so many times. I'm glad you guys actually said it. I'm really excited for that. So that's the reason I started all these small businesses. I failed a lot, and I've learned a lot. And one of the main things, I've learned accounting, how to manage employees. I've learned taxes, all the stuff that sucks. But the one thing I learned the most, that is most important to me, is I like helping people. How many of you guys have called me for help and I helped out? Quite a few. And I'll answer the phone if I have time. And I love that when I was younger, I didn't have someone like that to call. I remember the first thing I asked, I was trying to get into the stock market, and I called my friend's grandma, who was like 87 years old. And I was like, how do you get into stocks? And she goes, I don't know, I just pay some fidelity or something. I was like, well, I'm going to have to learn this all my own. So what I'm planning here to do is all the stuff that I've learned in the last 15 years of business, all the stuff that Justin, Trish, Spenser, everything they've done in management, owning their own business, and running their own life, we're going to try to take those 40 years, 50 years of combined experience, we're going to try to crunch it down to about 2 hours tonight. So I have 4 lessons I want to go over, or 3 things, that I think are the most important lessons I've ever learned in my life. The first one is don't be afraid to give up something good for something great. The second is be a customer of your own business. And the last is every single day you get to work, find something that can put you out of business and fix that thing. I'm a little thirsty. I'm going to tell you a couple stories that have to go with that. So, be a customer of your own business. I used to work at the Ford store, and I drove the coolest 2003 Dodge Caravan I've ever had in my life. And it was paid off. I didn't owe $1 on it. It was hail damage, and I didn't care. But I knew that one of these days, these car salesmen are going to make me buy a car. And it's a lot of car salesmen bought a car on the last day of the month. Am I right, Charlie?
Yeah.
So it was Corey Merrick that pushed me into it, and he goes, we're 3 short of our goal. Someone needs to buy a truck. Raise your hand if you haven't bought a truck in the last 6 months. And like 3 people. Corey goes, go pick one. You gotta buy one today. Shit. So that's 2 of my points. Is I gave up something good, which was my 2003 Dodge Caravan that could have ran for another. My sister still drives it today. It's been 5 years. I gave that up. She's still driving it today. I just gave it to her. Because I knew that I had to be a customer of my own business. I knew that if I was sitting at the closing table with someone and I said, sign here and buy your brand new truck, if I didn't have the balls to do it myself, I wouldn't have the conviction to ask them to do it with passion. So I went, I bought the truck, I drove it, I loved it, I had to pay $400 a month instead of 0, which most people would say that's stupid. But I guarantee I took more money home in commissions after buying that truck. So that's 2 of my lessons. Be a customer of your own business. I owned a Ford that I sold. Big Roseland loves sports. I'm so glad I can see you guys. Last time was a sea of darkness, so I'm glad I can see you for Christmas. And then also, give up something good for something great. And sometimes, and I'll get into that story a little bit later, but the next one is at my apartment. How many of you guys have seen my terrible apartments I bought on Facebook, right? So, in the hallways of this apartment, it's gross. I mean, there's either blood or garbage or some sort of liquid on the floor that's stained the concrete. You walk in, it's dark. There's only 2 single light bulbs you would see like in a wet basement, 2 little 60-watt warm light bulbs. And I knew, that's good enough to see at night. But I knew that I was going to have to give up something good for something great. So my wife and I, one night, we drove all the way up to ground in the middle of winter at 7 or 8 o'clock at night because I said, I got to check this out and see how scary it is. And it was terrifying. You remember that trip? She's like, I'm not going inside. But she did. It's on there. So I called my electrician. I got there the next day. He was working on something. I said, we need to pull these lights down. We got to put more lumens in this thing. We had about 1,000 lumens, and I bumped it up to 15,000. So I gave up something good for something great. I could have left shitty, dim light bulbs, but instead I spent $7,000 upgrading it. Every tenant told me thank you. Some tenants told me, I was afraid to leave my house until you put these lights in. After the sun went down, it was scary, crying all the time. But first, I bought the car, I bought the apartment, I went there, the cops were there, like right when I closed it. What a welcome party. So I locked the doors, I put lights on, everyone's happy. I gave up something good for something great. Now when I go to rent an apartment, it's so much easier because I can say, it's so bright in here. We have 60,000 lumens of light in these hallways. And it's safe. And one thing, I don't have a kid. I guess we're going to have a kid soon. But Justin says it a lot, and he says, I'm not going to rent to someone I won't want my own daughter to live in. And that's something, I didn't have a kid, but that's one thing I said. If I don't want an 18-year-old girl to stay here and not feel safe, I got to make it better. So as a customer of my own business, because I went and checked it out, 8 o'clock on a weekend in Huron, South Dakota. I didn't have to do that, but I did it. I gave up something good for something great, and I looked for something that could put me out of business. I'm glad I took notes this time. The last story is, it's a little funnier. So I painted the back of, have you guys seen my building? So picture this, right? There's a huge brown building, 60 feet by 60 feet. I just did an all new jet black asphalt parking lot. New yellow lines, new doors, new windows. And I was a cheap ass on one thing. Going down the stairs of the back, I painted these steps. They were concrete. I said, you know what? Carpet's $200. I can just paint it. I'll get away with the plan. 3 days after I did the parking lot, it's raining, and I go outside, and I said, this is awesome. I'm standing in the rain. I'm just getting poured on. I'm like, man, look at this slope. Just the perfect drainage. You would be surprised how important drainage is, am I right? So I walk up, I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I'm on top of the world. I just spent tons of money making this thing good. I gave up a lot of stuff that was good for something great. I walk up, I open the door, my shoes are wet, I slip on the stairs, and I fell on my ass, and I hit every stair on the way down.
Oh, no.
It wasn't that bad. But the first thing that crossed my mind was, there's a guy that lives down there, and he's got 2 little daughters, and I was like, man, if one of those girls would have fallen down the stairs and hurt themselves, I could not have lived with myself. So I pulled my carpet guy off. I said, hey, I know you're right in the middle of something. I need you to go carpet these stairs. Because 1, I was a customer in my own business. I show up for my properties every day. 2, I gave up something good for something great. I could have left them painted. And then I looked for something that could put me out of business, and I fixed it. Justin says it all the time. When I have a problem, I want to fix it, and I never want to hear about it again. I don't think about that anymore. When I walk down the stairs, it doesn't even cross my mind. The only time I thought about it again was when I was writing the speech. Success loves preparation. And the reason I say that is because people will say, well, how do you keep track of all this shit? And I say, I make lists, I make goals. How many of you guys make a grocery list when you go shopping? Pretty much everyone, right? Is that flat? What are they? How many of you guys make a list of goals you want to accomplish in the next 10 or 15 years? Right. Now, if you didn't raise your hand to the goals one, but you raised your hand to the grocery one, you should think about, why would my grocery list be more important than the rest of my life? Now, if you want success beyond what most people have, you're going to have to sacrifice. I didn't need to spend money on the carpet. I didn't need to spend money on the lights. I didn't have to put the asphalt parking lot. But when I go to rent it, I can get more money. When I go to sell it, I can get more money. And my tenants, I know, are not going to call and complain to me anymore. And that's worth all of the money. I don't want to get calls. Hey, someone just ran into my car because there's 12 parking spots and there's a 21-unit apartment. Happened all the time. Never had it again. So at my last seminar, I'm just going to wrap things up. I'm actually on time. This is crazy. So I explained how Justin Thiesse, he's the 3rd speaker tonight, talking about a lot of idea, but he kept telling me to sell my buildings. And it wasn't like he was like, you should just sell it, you should just sell it. We went over something. He asked me, I had 2 properties. I had a 15-unit apartment. Have you guys seen it, the blue one by the Chamber of Commerce? When I bought that place, the cops came there one day and he goes, wow, I haven't been here in like 6 months. I used to come here like every day. He goes, I've only pulled my gun 3 times in my entire life, and 2 of them were in this building. I was like, no shit. Now they're not there anymore. So I told him, I said, I have a 3-unit that I moved in, so here I'm going to go back to my give up something good for something great. I lived in a little 2-bedroom house, 900 square feet. We had a $461 mortgage payment. Justin says, you should sell this and buy an apartment. I go, you want me to tell my wife we're moving out of this house and moving into an apartment building? Yep. I said, okie dokie. Now, I was paying $460 a month, but we rented out the top floor, lived in the bottom, and Airbnb at the bottom. Or we lived in the middle and Airbnb at the bottom. And we went from paying $460 a month to making $500. It's a $1,000 swing in our mortgage. That's amazing. He goes, 2 years later, he goes, you should sell that. I'm like, you just told me to buy this thing. He goes, well, how much are you making a month? I said, I'm making like $500 a month. Well, what could you sell it for? And I told him. He goes, that's like 10 years worth of profits, just sell it. So I did. And at the same time, during the same month, I listed my apartment. I told him what I make. He goes, what do you make in a month? I said, when everything's done, after all expenses, I make $3,500 a month. And to me, 3 years ago, I was like on top of the world, $3,500 plus my $500. No living expenses, $4,000 a month. He says, give it all up. And I did. And it sounds crazy. We sold them both in the same month. The 3-unit apartment, we got a check for $50,000. And we sold the blue apartment, we got a check for $374,000. Quite sure about it. So in 1 month, I went from like $400 in my checking account to $425,000. I have never had so much money in all my life. And we didn't have a freaking house to live in. We stayed in a motel. We lived in a flip house that Joey bought. Thanks, by the way. And then we moved out and lived in a motel for a month until Paul grown and finished our house. Thanks for doing it so fast, Paul. We were living in a motel. So then I'm telling people this story, and they're like, oh man, you can just buy that house cash and not have to worry. Get a little job. And I'm like, no way. I'm going to borrow all the money I can and go buy an even shittier apartment. And that's what I did. So I went to Huron. I bought this absolute dump. And we fixed it up. We spent a year, spent all of the money we made, refinanced it. And I did think a lot about talking about these numbers. And I'm not doing it to brag. I hope everyone knows. I'm doing it for inspiration because 5 years ago we were worth like $10,000. Anyway, we refinanced it. We just bought a motel. We had appraisals on all this stuff. And now today, me and my wife hold $2.5 million worth of property. It's just a shit to some of these people in this room. I know it should be way cooler in this room. And that's why I'm putting on the seminar, because we need to hear stories like this. I have never met someone that did what I did, ever. And ever since I started this journey, I've met more people that are so amazing, so cool in this town. There's so many of you in this room that are awesome. Give it up for yourselves. There's amazing people. Aaron Hanson, Justin Thiesse, Paul Groenwijk. I don't have time to name every one of you, but you're all awesome. But you guys have had a huge impact in my life. And that's why I'm doing this. It's for the... Oh, I need my clicker. Sorry. I'm doing this for motivation. It's not to brag. It's not for myself. It's not to make money. All the money we made for profits, I'm going to give it to the big friend, little friend tonight. We're going to write him a check and half that. I don't need to do this. I'm doing it because, like I said earlier, I want to give back to the people that helped me. I've read a lot of books. I've watched a lot of videos. I watched a lot of seminars. And if those people wouldn't have done what I'm doing tonight when they did it, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I'm at today. And I think our town needs motivation like that. Would you guys agree? This shit's exciting. Are you guys excited? Got the volume cranked to this one, Joey, or what? Are you excited? Okay. So, on the last show, my next speaker, Spenser, I called like how many people did I call and ask, hey, what did I do at the last seminar that was dumb? Can you please explain to me? Raise your hand. A lot of you, right? And it's not because it wasn't for myself. It was because I want to make this show so good. The next one. This one's a lot better than, at least in my opinion so far. I haven't started anything up or a little clicker. But after that show, I called Josh Miller. I can see him. And a lot of people said the same thing, including Spenser, who's going to come up here shortly. He said, you have 133 people in the crowd. I don't know how many are in the crowd tonight, but there's close to 200. And he explained, 200 people. I was giving you goosebumps thinking about it. He ragged on me for like 2 straight hours about all the stuff I did wrong. And I love it. I love it. I ask people, if I'm doing something stupid, tell me, because I want to stop it as fast as possible. So, he sat there and ragged on me for 2 hours, and I loved it. I couldn't stop laughing. I have the entire sheet of everything he told me right here, and I'm asking the same goddamn questions we went over. And that's the stuff we need. He told me there's 133 people in that room. You were there for 3 hours. I thought 3 hours. He said, you have to multiply that times 133. That's 400 hours of time that you, he didn't say wasted, but he said you could have made better. You could have packed more value into that. And I said, you're right. So that's why I practice. That's why I have so many notes this time. Last time I didn't want to look like an idiot holding the note, but I just looked like an idiot without them. So that's why I'm doing it. So I'm not going to babble on anymore. I actually ran perfect on time. So Joey set the clock. And you guys, let's bring out Spenser Nicolaisen, my brother-in-law, my friend. I've known him forever. He's the manager of Beds by Design. And he's one of the most animated storytellers you're ever going to listen to. Sorry, I screwed it up again. This is what was supposed to happen. Grab that microphone. Man, that actually looked really good. Joey's going to set the time. Spenser, thanks for coming.
What's up, everybody?
Oh, this is so cool. I can see you guys this time. Last time it was like a sea of darkness. So, Spenser, last time you came to our house and you absolutely grilled me. And it was hilarious. So I'd like you to do that in front of all of these people again tonight. Now, let's talk about your early life, right? I mean, I met you at a pretty young age. We played baseball. We hung out in high school, did some illegal things together. We had a lot of fun.
Lots of fun.
It was awesome. So, tell me, where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Mitchell. My mother was a nurse, dad's a soldier. That's kind of what I expected to do all my life.
Hell yeah.
Planned to do that, joined when I was 17, realized how poor a soldier is, and then realized how much I love money. And so I decided to be a pauper in the civilian world rather than a prince in the military. And so in the first year there, I made way more money than I had in all 4 years of serving. And that's kind of where I fell in love with sales, which is where it led me today.
That's so cool. So outside of high school, what was the next of your first jobs? We're just going to go real quick over from 18 to now.
Yep, so pretty much in school I just knew I was going to probably not spend much time in college, so I wanted to get all the education I could at high school, so I did college prep classes, things like that. But ultimately I knew that was probably going to be the gist of my schooling. So I moved to Rapid City. My brother was serving overseas. I watched his house for him. And I started working at Slumberland selling furniture, and that's where I started selling mattresses. I made more money in that first 4 months than I had in the previous year, and so that's where I really fell in love with sales and realized I control my future. The problem with that is there was no training course, so you're just kind of feeling your way through. We would get trained on each Saturday, just kind of talking about the product knowledge and things like that, and I kind of fell in love with the learning portion of it. One of my main things that I really like to focus on is just self-improvement, trying to better yourself every day, and that's kind of where that mainly began, was with some of those early training courses in sales. After furniture, I moved to cars for a month. Bless your soul for car salesman, that is the worst job ever. As soon as I had a guy juke me in the snow, I was like, yep, we're done here. Okay.
One story you told me is you had two people trying to buy a car. Their credit score was 700 combined.
Yeah, they thought you could have that.
We had a 700 credit score combined.
That's not how that works. That's not how any of that works. So, did that, and then I went to jewelry, Riddle's Jewelry, where Emily works as well. Yeah. And that was good. I became a goldsmith. I love working with my hands. So I was actually repairing jewelry, but then I also sold jewelry, was a manager in training. So I learned that if you do every task at work, they can't possibly fire you because you're too valuable. So just train in every area and eventually you'll be unstoppable. However, again, back to the money thing, it was the best paying hobby I ever had. I loved melting gold and squeezing diamonds, but ultimately you don't get paid in gold. And so I had to move on. You mentioned, getting rid of something you love for something better. And I did enjoy that job, but I was probably the brokest I had ever been. And so I just pulled a loan out with my credit union, took a few $1,000s. My buddy came back from overseas, and I moved from North Dakota then to Sioux Falls. And that's where I started working at Esurance. And that was a different game. So I had sold for probably 8 to 10 years before I did that. And the first 6 months of that, I often went outside, stared at the moon, and questioned the meaning of life. I thought I was a salesman. I had no idea what I was doing. And so you're just trying to essentially keep your nose above the water. And that's where I really had to decide whether this is a job I had or a career I have. And when I did that, I had to really just go full-fledged into the self-improvement and really figure out what are the fundamentals to my job. Pretty much every job that's out there, there are a very few fundamentals that lead up to the success of that role. And knowing what those fundamentals are allows you to go from role to role with confidence, knowing that what you've learned is valuable in multiple places. Meaning, when I learned to sell furniture, that really didn't help me sell jewelry, but learning to ask good questions, close, figure out their sense of urgency. Those types of things were something that are kind of universal where you can carry to any sales job.
Absolutely. And how many people, you had a team at Esurance, how many people were you managing at one point?
So anywhere between 8 on the small end and 25 on the high end. Essentially, I got in there, 6 months I struggled, like I said. I questioned the meaning of life. I was the night crew, so I worked from 4 p.m. to 1 a.m.
You were inbound sales, right?
Yeah,
so,
inbound
so
phone
some
sales.
person across the country, 2 o'clock in the morning, sees an Esurance call, commercial.
So that's someone at 11 having a wine party, doing a quote party with insurance in California. So we work coast to coast. Early in the day, you're going to get East Coasters. Later in the day, you're going to get West Coasters. Either way, though, that really helped me kind of broaden my horizon for the people that are out there, because some reason East Coast people are going to yell at you, and if you yell back, they like that. So, like, give me a quote. All right, sit down and give me information. I like the cut of this guy's jib. So don't try to think too much into it, but that's just how it works. So, I learned a little bit about some, again, reflection. Try to imitate the character that you're working with. If they talk slow, you slow down. If they talk really fast, you might want to talk really fast. And that's, again, something that you can do in person. So again, if someone is really animated, you can get really animated. If someone is buttoned up, you might want to button up a little bit.
They call it mirroring.
Yeah.
Works every time.
Yep. So Jordan's very well aware of some of the fundamentals as well. And so I guess that's where the start of my passion for self-improvement began. And one of the sayings, I'm a big compilation of a bunch of books I read and a bunch of videos I heard. So if you hear something that changes your life, I had nothing to do with it. I probably read it in a book and someone else told me. But if you...
That's exactly how I am. That's why I'm doing this tonight, because hopefully some of you guys pick some of the stuff this guy says and says, God dang it, sales are important. And we're going to talk about sales a lot, because sales is the most important thing in my life.
Yeah, probably one of the most underrated positions out there. A salesman is, especially during these times where they're hard, they're just even more desirable yet. When I left Esurance, I essentially had the opportunity to pick out of about 2 million jobs what I want to do. Everyone's quitting, so I could just cherry pick what I wanted to do, which is why I'm kind of where I want to be. You give up something you love. I was loving some money, selling some insurance, but I became the king of an anthill I really didn't want to be in charge of. And I found a lot more passion in working directly with people. Back it up, I guess, a little bit. What I was going to say is, one thing is if you learn to work on yourself, you will find a fortune. If you learn to master your job, you will find a career. And so that...
Give it up! Well said here!
So that's one of the things that, just try to better yourself. Don't really worry what everyone else is up to. Everyone's got a certain set of skills. But as long as you're working on yourself, again, learning some of those fundamentals that you can carry across the board, once you get those down, that's where then you become a leader, never to return to being a follower again.
I learned so many tricks in sales. One of my favorite is Charlie Bates. My first time I ever sold a car, he goes, go sell that guy a car, it's easy. I said, okay, I'm going to try to sell him a car. I went outside, and I tried to get him in the door, and I walk back inside, and I go, Charlie, the guy won't come inside. I got 8, I'm just looking because I didn't know what else to say. He goes, well, why don't you get him inside? I said, I don't know how. He goes, I'll show you, follow me. And I get in their room, I'm like, what? He goes, why you just tell him to follow you? I was like, oh my God, it worked perfect. I do that all the time. Charlie, thank you so much. Give it up for Charlie Bates. And then I closed that deal. It was the first car I ever sold. It was a car that had sat on the parking lot for months, and the guy had never bought a car there before. Charlie totally lied to me and told me that was an easy sale. But I had in my mind, this is going to be easy. Works every time.
Well, that's where sometimes the direct route's the best route.
Exactly.
So, again, like he said, I brutally beat him up for about 2 hours. Those are facts. I did that. I told him that, having a more clear clear vision of where we want to go, what we want to take away from some of this. I came with a pen and a piece of paper last time looking to take some stuff home. And so I want to try to give you a couple of tidbits that I think you guys, again, work on yourself instead of your job, and you'll find a wealth of fortune there. So.
Perfect, I love it. Let's talk about a couple things that you told me I should have brought up and I didn't on the last show. One thing you mentioned is the 33% rule. I love that. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so Jordan said a lot of good people in the crowd, and there is people who are going to be the way to success. Without them, you're never going to meet a rich hermit. So you got to have the people, you got to be talking to the crowds. And what I learned when I was at Esurance, when I wanted to become successful, is the law of 33 is a third of the people in your life should be on your level. They're your friends, they got the same pay as you, they got the same lifestyle as you. A third of the people in your life should be below you, looking up to you, getting advice to how to get where you got. Stay humble and remember that before you had what you have now, you didn't. And then what I realized is I didn't have an upper 33, which is a group of people that can help me answer my questions to get me where I need to go. So because I was working at trying to climb a corporate ladder, I tried to align myself with some people that were in positions of where I wanted to be. So I could ask them, when you get to these crossroads, what did you do? What would you do if you were me, type of thing. And that was able to really help me out through work. The problem is underneath this shirt, I'm covered in metaphorical scars from all the lessons I learned being a sales leader. And there are oftentimes not the people you need in your life to give you the information that you need. And so that's where I think reading comes in, and finding mentors for topics that are traits that you desire, that you want. For example, when I need to hunker down and really just push through, I reach to Winston Churchill. He's got a lot of readings. He's had some bad things happen in his life, and he can really guide me to pushing through challenging times. When you need sales, you go find sales mentors. Zig Ziglar, there's a lot of different people out there. Again, when you need that information, your brothers, your mothers, your sisters, unfortunately, sometimes will be the first ones to tell you you can't do it and you need to quit and go back. So again, finding those mentors that then can give you the information that you need, give you the motivation that you need, educate you in the way that you need to, so that way you're prepared for the future.
Absolutely. It's awesome having a mentor.
And then also you can humble yourself a little bit and realize how much you do have, and help the people around you kind of get what you have. Because again, sometimes just a working car and a shelter over your head is more than what some can say they have.
Absolutely. One thing you told me is, when someone does something really stupid, who's in charge of that? And then who's in charge of them? So speak to that a little bit, will you?
Yeah, so often in our lives we run into challenges, and we have a store in Fargo, and that's not the headquarter factory for our store. Our factory is in Sioux Falls, so we build all the parts there. And we send a lot of stuff up to Fargo, including leadership to do the training. And when I went up there, I was set there to go and kind of take the temp, see what's going on, see why they're struggling. And I got there, and pretty much every time I ran into a problem, the first question in my head was, Jesus, who's in charge of this? And then I thought to myself, and then who's in charge of that guy? And you just keep going, and then who's in charge of that guy? So then when I came back, before you start chucking stones, you might want to shore up your windows and get rid of all the glass and shut your shutters, because they're coming back over the fence. So when I went back to Sioux Falls, I decided, let me make sure my store's not having those problems. But then when I reported to the owner, in the most polite way possible, you need to tell coach upwards, tell your general manager and your owner, there are these problems and there are checks and balances in order, and someone was in charge of that, and then someone was in charge of that, but now I'm looking at some characters that are in charge of those characters, and unfortunately I think, again, it goes all the way to the top. Leadership starts from the front. They're going to be the first ones to take the hits, but they're also the ones that are going to show everybody else how to get through it and that it's okay.
Because they've been there before.
Right.
One thing, my favorite thing you told me, which is again why I write down everything, was the faintest ink is better than the sharpest mind. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so again, I really like to self-improve and research, and a lot of that stuff, I don't know what the percentage is, but 20% of this will be retained by tomorrow for some of you. Maybe that percentage is a little higher, a little lower. best safe. So if you want to remember something, you need to write it down. And I think the Chinese proverb, we'll give this one, and ultimately, if you don't write it down, you're going to forget it. That's what it comes down to. And also, when you write it down, something very special happens in your brain where you see it, you write it, you've heard it, you've hit yourself in about 4 different ways, and you're much more likely to, again, remember it, but also be able to come back to it and use it.
I love it. That's why I write down everything. I used to when I was younger, when I would just write on Post-it notes, and I'd stick them all over the house, on my mirror in the bathroom, on my car, and everything, and I would never forget to do anything. But then they had cell phones and like notebooks, and it's just awesome because you don't forget stuff. Yeah,
I've been to Jordan's house. All around the mirror looks like a psychopath of sayings and things that you can do, but again, if you don't keep those things in front of mind, the sweetness of your cereal will distract you and you'll forget what you were doing in life. Absolutely.
There's nothing better than making a huge list of stuff you want to get done, and at the end of the day, crossing everything off, and then you have, like, taking all the crazy stuff that's happening in your mind, putting it on paper, and crossing it off, gives you some kind of crazy clarity in your life, where you can then use your mind for creative thinking, rather than like, what the hell am I doing all day?
Well, and you mentioned it earlier with the grocery list versus your kind of life goals. And again, I would say that one of the biggest things I've learned, if I could kind of go back and tell myself something 10 years ago, would be to get some goals. Write them down, short term and long term. Your short terms are things that you should almost think are fairly unobtainable, but within reason, so you can work towards them. And again, set up some steps. 1 step a day towards something is better than none. I'm an artist. In my free time, I like to make art, and when I set myself a goal to try to make 5 pieces a month, I made 30 in the first month. And there'll be times where I can go 6 months without producing a single piece. So that can just be the power of goal setting. The other part about having some good long-term goals is things are going to change. You want to continue to review your goals, make sure that's important to you, but also when you kind of get lost along the way, the long-term goals are going to be what will kind of help guide the ship when you need to find yourself at a crossroads making a big decision.
I love it. What's something you do every single day to keep yourself? It's funny, you just mirrored me. I leaned forward and then you did too. Stop doing it. What's something you do every day to prepare for your day? Whatever. How do you stay on top? One thing I do, I wake up, I go, holy cow, I write down everything I need to get done, and I don't go home. I don't care if it's 5 or 10 o'clock at night. I don't stop working until that thing's done. That's personally me. I don't go home and quit working until I'm done with my goals. What's something that you do every day?
I try to listen to motivational tapes. I can pretty much hear them in my head. I'd just say feed your mind. Whatever it is that you need. If you need to hear some lessons about what you do for work, if you like to listen to a good song, whatever it is, you just need to make sure that you feed your mind and stay focused on your goals. One of the most effective things someone can do is just write 3 things down in the most important order of what needs to be done today, and start with the first one. I think the saying is, eat a frog. You wake up, and the first thing you do in the morning is just slam down a frog. That should be the worst thing you do all day, and it only gets better from here. So if you can wake up and kind of eat that frog and just take care of the things that would otherwise loom over you through the day, you'll realize they weren't that big of a deal. And if you start on one and you don't get it done, you weren't going to get it done any other way. But you probably got at least more done towards getting that accomplished. Again, it's amazing how the simple things are actually the most effective. So,
what do you guys think so far? That's so cool. What is your biggest obstacle that you overcame, and how did you get over it? I know you had some struggles in life. I know you hated living in North Dakota. What got you past that? Like, there's been so many things that happened to me that I'm like, dude, this sucks. I want to quit. But then I have I can't quit because of this reason. What's something that helped you?
Well, one of them is I bought a horse-sized dog. I own a 180-pound Great Dane. And when you buy one of those, you're no longer welcome in apartment buildings anymore.
So you bought a house.
Yeah. So sometimes you get yourself in a pickle where you just can't go backwards, and once you get a great day, you either have to buy a house, own a farm, or move to a zoo. And so once my buddy came home from overseas and we were forced to all go and find our way, there was no going back. It kind of forced me into taking that big next step, which was getting a home, And so that's one thing that has kind of forced me into growing up a little.
Your frog was a dog.
Yep, my dog was the frog.
What does teamwork mean to you? No matter what position you've ever been in, you always somehow are like, oh, I just started a new job. Next time I'm manager, I'm in charge of everyone. So how do you do that? And what is like a manager and owner see in you to do that? And then once you get to that point, it's too many questions. How do you manage a team effectively? Because I've been to your store and everyone's happy. So how do you do that?
Yeah, a lot of questions there. So,
I shouldn't have wrote so much down.
yeah, start off with the first one, and then let's do pieces.
Okay, what does teamwork mean to you? Let's start with that.
So, going back to notes, I come back to my notebook and I see them, and I imagine this is what a famous rapper feels like, where he comes back and I remember writing that rhyme at the coffee shop, and that worked out good. That made me a lot of money. That's kind of what I feel like when I get to go back to some of my notes that I trained myself. But with teamwork, one of the things that struck me when I was listening to a lot of videos, reading a lot of books, was be someone in the community worth looking up to. And that community can be just at your work, right? Attitude's a big thing, and as soon as I started to succeed at Esurance, I was like 9 months in, again, I was staring at the moon the first 6 months, hoping that thing would come hit me. And so then I asked myself, I've been in sales for 10 years, I'm struggling so badly, and then I had that breakthrough. I had a mentor come sit with me and teach me a couple things, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to help the people around me. I could sell a lot of policies, and my saying was this: I had to kind of figure this out. Why is a good day only good till you get to the water fountain, but a bad day lasts a week? And so when you sold a bunch of policies, it's like, oh, nice, tomorrow I start with 0. Great. But yet when you have a couple days with 0, you're like, I am going to start the business end of a pistol. Please take me out. And when you start questioning what it feels like to drive into oncoming traffic, you really got to look at your life and ask yourself some questions. And again, I went back to, does this want to be a career I have or a job I had? And there's a big long story, and I'll kind of keep it short, but ultimately Cortez was a conqueror. He went to Central America, and many cultures had tried to take out the Aztec capital. It's full of gold, lots of jewels, everybody wants it. And ultimately he had one of the smaller armies outside the city preparing to take this city. And he thought about what he should do, and in the morning he ordered all of his men to burn the boats. And when there was nowhere to escape, and there was only either we're going to take this city and take this gold, or we are going to die here, they took the city and took the gold. So sometimes, closing those doors behind you and burning those safety bridges and getting some of those safety lines off you, it's going to give you the confidence to do what you need to do and conquer.
I definitely burned the boats at times I probably shouldn't have. But it does.
Not bridges.
Not bridges, but there's been times where I'm like, I just need to commit to this and figure it out later. Because if I tried to figure this whole thing out, this whole show, there's no way I could plan for all the things that are going to go wrong. I just did it, and then all of a sudden, terrible stuff happens and breaks or whatever, and I just fixed it, and now we're here, and everyone's having a good time. What's your biggest obstacle right now?
My biggest obstacle right now is the Great Resignation. Apparently nobody wants to work. Surprise. And, there's a lot of roles that need to be filled that aren't the highest paying roles, and apparently there's just a challenge in finding humans. Good help's hard to find. I think that's a saying, and I'm sure it still is. That's one of the greater challenges. The other one is the biggest shortcoming of Beds by Design is there's not enough of them. We dominate where we're at, the eastern side of South Dakota, the eastern side of North Dakota. We've had the best couple years ever, and we're looking to expand, and hopefully we'll have one in kind of the Omaha area to really kind of cover the Midwest.
Let's talk about Beds by Design for just a minute. So you custom make beds, pillows,
dog beds, for horse-sized dogs. Yep. Bean bags for adults.
You have something that's it's 2 king beds put together. What do you call that?
Yeah, we call it the Utah King.
Get it?
Big enough for a man to settle nights. Definitely get the mattress protector.
So when we're done here, we got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to cover some things, but we're going to spend... It's pretty good. They like it. How many of those have you sold?
So I've sold a double queen, and I've sold a king and a half, and then Fargo sold a double king, but we had to build it in our store because their shop just isn't even big enough to build it.
So if you guys ever go to Sioux Falls, we're going to raffle off a bunch of $200 gift certificates. It's a $0 minimum, right?
Yep.
They can come in there, take $200 of the stuff and leave.
Yeah, at the very least, come get some sweet Omni pillows. They're the best. They're all throughout the Midwest and Canada, and they have their own website. So we joke sometimes that we've turned our bed factory into a pillow factory, and now we just make beds on the side. But it's blown up. They're in all the Health Source chiropractic clinics, and yeah, you got 30 days, 90 days to come check them out and figure out if you love them or not. If not, we'll give you something else for.
We're gonna raffle this off, but before the end of the night, when the show's over, if there's not too many people on stage, come sit in this because it's like a marshmallow. See, I told you, it's awesome. So one cool thing when I went up there is you guys have a loom that's probably 20 feet across. That's what, $200,000-$300,000.
Yep.
So you're an American-made manufacturer of beds, and then you are also the sales. So it's literally from thread. I mean, your beds come on little spools of thread and leave as a bed.
Yep, one of the nicest things that I got to do so far is they sent us to South Carolina to visit our fabric factory to see where all of our thread and all of our trim and stuff comes from. And yeah, everything's within the U.S. Other than like 2 weeks, our protectors dried up like knee deep in COVID. We had no setbacks, which is why we're dominating the competition.
Because of American manufacturing.
Yep.
Give it up for America!
One of the reasons why I decided to work there is, again, I was a goldsmith. I love working with my hands. We even used to vacuum the floor, send that in to be refined, and then get gold back. So that's a different level of recycling. But when I got here, we use all of our scraps like 4th grade art teachers. That's why we have bean bags and dog beds, because all of our excess foam, we have to pay to bring it in, we have to pay to throw it away. So we just get creative, and I have a horse dog, and there are no beds on the market for that, so we built a dog bed. I once had a bean bag with a footstool, so now we make footstools for our bean bags, and you know, we're limited by our imagination of whatever we can do with fabric and foam.
About you have, what's your warranty? We're just going to do a little plug because we're almost over.
Yeah, so the nice thing about our beds is we service what we sell. So all beds are going to be comfortable in the store. The question is, how long does that last? And when it does, and it's not comfortable, then what? And retail solution to everything is I'll just sell you the whole thing over again. And I did that at Slumberland. You know, there's specials, there's beds with poly. Poly's a great foam, it's very cheap, but it doesn't last forever. And we use it too, so it's not an everlasting gobstopper. You might want to change it out later. But they buy these beds anywhere between $1,000 and $3,000, and you know they got name brands on them. And within a couple years, they don't like the way it feels. Well, the warranty is if it dips over an inch without you laying in it, something that can be measured, not how does that make you feel. And so people would come back, they didn't like the way the bed felt, and I'd be like, great, I got one right over here on sale, $100 off, just another $1,000. And of course, they'd have choice words on where they want to stick that old mattress, which would lead for a poor workday experience as well as a poor customer experience. So, with my job, essentially, we service what we sell. If you buy a bed for $1,000, it's worth $1,000 till the end of time. I got a $6,500 bed. I got double kings we can make. So ultimately, you can trade in your bed over time and upgrade. So there's really no price point that we can't find a bed that'll work for you. And later, you know, when you're more flush, if you want to throw a couple $100 more, you can just continue to upgrade your bed. But we also just service what you get. So if you get a couple $1,000 bed, those are premium foams, and you know, those can just be rotated and extend the life of the bed. You know, so you don't always have to pay to upgrade or keep your bed feeling good.
So you custom make the bed. However, you can go and lay, and then you can say, I want firm, extra firm. You can, I mean, our pillows, you custom made them, and you can literally do exactly how you like them. We hated them. We brought them back, and you fluffed them up just where we like them. So.
Yep. So the pillows can be adjusted again. Everything's awesome at the store, and that's how it's going to be at retail as well. They're going to be sweet there. There's plenty of good beds with name brands on them. The problem is, when it doesn't feel good, when not if, then what are you going to do? And then that's where you're going to have to be throwing that whole investment away again. So.
And we're almost out of time here, but one thing you told me is that you spend more time in your bed than anywhere else, like in your entire life, right?
Except your house. But if you put your bed in your front yard, I don't know if you can say that. So it's just because your bed's in your house that your house gets to trump it. But other than that, yeah, you said 8, get a better 6, I guess. 6, 8, 10, 12 hours.
Every single day.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're almost done here. One thing I want to ask you is, one thing you told me is, there's one thing you want to tell all these people, since we're almost out of time. What's the most important thing you tell them, if you already haven't?
Look inward and fix yourself. You know, be the change you want to see. And again, self-improvement is going to be where you find the fortune. Because when you improve yourself, again, you kind of said, you know, how do I become manager really quickly? Well, that only happened once I changed my mindset and became a leader and thought like a leader and asked the leaders, you know, when these things happen, where before the sky was falling, you stay calm in the pocket and you analyze the damage and then you come up with a good solution. You know, learning those things, you don't forget them. So then when you go on, you know, I am the manager very quickly. Everyone obviously wants to hire at the lowest dollar first and make sure you're good, but if you have those things instilled in you, very quickly can you continue to replicate, you know, servicing the people and providing a good performance.
I love it. All right, guys. That's all we have for Spenser. Give it up for Spenser, guys. What do you guys think? Alright, we got one more speaker, and then we're going to take a little break and give away a whole bunch of stuff. So, it's actually working out pretty good. So, our next guest is one super badass lady. She was the most requested woman I had at my last event. I asked so many people, who do you want? And everyone said, Trish Bates. She has around 30 employees, maybe more, maybe less, I don't know. But one interesting fact is, there's only 5% of companies in the United States. There's 330 million people in the United States. Only 5% of the companies have more than 30 employees. She's a 5%er. In my opinion, that is just absolutely amazing. She's probably more than that, but just in that one metric. She owns 2 separate locations, one in Mitchell, one in Sioux Falls. How many of the girls are from Mitchell and Sioux Falls tonight? And so awesome. When I interviewed her, all she talked about is making her team better. So I'm so excited to have her here. She started her own university to train a new generation of hairstylists. I thought that was crazy because she looked at every country in the school and said, "That's not good enough. I can do better. And I'm gonna." So let's bring her out. The owner of Hollywood Style, Trish Bates. Amazing. It's like a pillow or like a marshmallow. Put your feet on the little thing. Spenser custom made that. He made that himself.
That's good.
Buck, did you start the recording?
Can this be over here? Okay.
Yeah, if you want, we can drag it over. I just went away from the fire.
Oh, that was awesome.
This is so cool.
I have to say something really quick.
Okay.
So, Hollywood Style did our own hair show last year. It was our first ever attempt at doing it. And we wanted fire so bad, and they told me I couldn't have it because I just needed to stay in budget, and maybe next time. And Jordan got fired. So yay.
And I'll tell you how that happened. First of all, I did get permission from the theater and from the fire marshal to do this, so everything's good. Justin Thiesse said, I want to sponsor some tickets to fill this place, and he paid for the tickets, and I took the money and I bought fire machines, so pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, first of all, I want to tell a little funny story I was really worried about saying, but it's kind of funny. The first time I met you, you intimidated the shit out of me. Oh. Charlie Bates says, hey, my wife just bought a brand new Lincoln, she's super cool, and you gotta go show her how to use it. And I worked at the car dealership, I'm like, what? Okay, so if I did a bad job explaining how the Lincoln worked, I was just really scared because you're so cool. So
you were scared of Charlie, not me.
Well, look at him, he's scary. Alright, so let's talk about your early life. Where'd you grow up? Whatever.
I was really nervous that you were going to ask me the same question that you asked Spenser to start when I was 18 and go to now, and I'm like, oh, that's a
We're going to start when you were 5.
time. Holy Hannah. So born and raised in Mitchell, pretty much lived here my whole life. Charlie and I took a little stint in Sioux Falls while we went to school and kind of grew up a little bit, had kids, and came back because we wanted to raise our family here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, one story you told me was you started a business, I think you worked at Prestige.
Yeah.
You made a bunch of money, and then you did your taxes, and your first year you lost $1,100.
11,000.
Oh! Really? Sorry. Charlie's first time hearing this.
So Jordan's throwing numbers to me look really cool. I'm throwing out those numbers.
It only says 1,100 here, so we're good.
Okay, good. 1,100, we'll go with that.
So talk to me about that. You thought you were doing really good. You must not have been doing too great, so tell me about that.
So I decided, I knew when I went to school to do hair that my dream was to own a salon. So I wanted to do everything that I could do, all the different avenues that there are in the hair industry and all the different pay scales and how you do it, whatever. So I wanted to try it all out to know basically what not to do or what to do when I opened my own salon. And so I worked at a salon in Sioux Falls for a couple of years. I did it really great, grew my business, was making a good paycheck. And then when I came back to Mitchell, I'm from here, I knew people. I thought it would be super easy to grow my business. And it was. I had great support. I had people in my chair every single day. It was like so much fun. I got to do what I wanted to do. I got to show up to work, do awesome things, and go home at the end of the day. I also then learned the end of the day was never really the end of the day. You had to pay sales tax and do taxes at the end of the year and buy new product and all the things that need to happen when you own your own business. And you take in cash. At that time, it was like cash and checks. Like credit cards were not much of a thing. That was old. And so you just had money all the time, right? You just had money all the time. When I wasn't busy, I would go to Walmart and spend the money that was in my money bag, and then instead of doing more people, and if I didn't have people, I'd just go home and not work. So you just worked when you wanted to work, and you made the money when you wanted to make the money, and you bought the things that you had the money to buy too. So the cash flow seemed okay, but in the end, when you looked at, I was kind of an all or nothing kind of girl. So if I wanted to go to all the education, I wanted to have all the new products, I wanted to have all the new things. So when you do all of those things and it's just you, you run out of money really fast. So
you learned some serious lessons. I
Yeah.
run out of money a lot.
Yeah. I start
Don't
to
laugh at
sometimes. I have people keep me on track now.
So, talk to me about how you started your own salon, why you started your own salon.
So my why in the beginning and my why now are pretty similar to the same. It's just growing. It was the going to hair school is pretty stereotypical of it's what you do if you didn't know what else you wanted to do with your life, or it's kind of a little hobby that you can do on the side. And I'm kind of a little stubborn. I don't know. My mom and dad are here. They're probably going to agree a lot. But I wanted to prove to everyone, the world, that you could make money doing what you love to do. And so that was why I wanted to start the salon, because I just wanted to give a place where people could go and do what they love to do and make a good living at it and have a family and do all the things. So that was my why I started. why I'm still doing it today is because that's happening. And I'm just people keep coming in, and new students now, oh, that gets me so excited, saying that come in, and I can teach them how to not only be a grown-up, because they come to you at 18, so you have to teach them to be a grown-up, but you also get to teach them how to be amazing in the world of the cosmetology industry. So
how do you keep, so I went in there for the first, I'd never been in there, I went in there and I walked in and I'm like, how are these people having so much fun? It's like cooler than a bar in here. Like, you guys are like, there's music and everyone's cutting hair and having fun and laughing. You even have like a table in the middle, and I'm like, how does she do that? And that's one reason I know for your success. So how do you keep everyone so dang happy? Especially in a salon.
okay.
Nothing bad about salons.
They are very happy, but they know when to be happy, and they know where to not be happy at. So they aren't happy all the time, I promise you that. But it's their business, just like anything else. So they all may work in Hollywood style, but they all run their own business behind the chair. So when they're out, it's sales 100% of the time. Charlie and I have the conversation every day. Car salesmen and hairstylists are the same people, just female and male, and that's different. But they have to sell themselves every single day. So if you walk through the door and they're not having a good time, or you see drama or whatever happening, that you're not going to retain the people that you have. So.
Yeah, we had talked about how you had so many people that have been with you since the start, or for 10 years plus.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, most people, like in the car business, the turnaround for cars was like 97% in the first year. I'd imagine salons are close to that. How do you keep people for so long?
I think for us, it is literally our team. It's everybody that we have on our team, and just the culture that we build. And we work really hard on our culture. We have culture coaches come in, and it's something that we bring up every month at our monthly meetings, and we work really hard on that. And just we're a pretty tight-knit family. I think that's probably one of the hardest things of our culture, is because we are tight-knit. So when new people come in, they have to kind of squeeze their way in and get accepted, and so that's a little hard too, but that's pretty much all on them. I can be a good leader in that, but my job is to train all of them to be leaders, and then they do the hard work from there.
So let's talk about your school a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is crazy, because the amount of government stuff you probably had to go through to start at university was insane, right? Like, if anyone here's ever been on a government website, there's like 500 tabs before you get to what you're finding. So how did you get through that sea of nonsense?
I'm still swimming in it every day. It is a lot. It's all of our program is state-based, so everything we do, from every hour that they put, we have to. And the state is very old-fashioned, so we have to write it down on a piece of paper, and they would like us to fax it, but I've gotten them to let me take a picture and email it now. So it's just a lot of red tape stuff, but everything runs through them so that they are like fully licensed when they get done. So there's a lot of research, a lot of things that I didn't even know I needed to know when we're doing this. We did things with the legislature, and we got rules passed and laws changed and all the things to be able to do it. So there was a lot of just stuff that needed to happen in the midst of it. So it was a lot, but it's 100% worth it.
So you probably had to just call and call and call. And
I'm best friends with the Department of Labor and South Dakota Cosmetology Commission.
Are you serious?
We're really best friends. No, we are now. We talk every day.
It's like, no wonder it's so easy.
I'm not. We are now, though. We became friends.
And how long ago did you start doing that? From the time you started to the time you got your first student enrolled their first day, how long did that take?
It was about a 1-year process. We had just a wild idea, and I have a lot of wild ideas.
You don't
girls.
say.
Yeah. I have a lot of wild ideas, and then their job is to follow through all the ideas, because my ADD doesn't let me follow through very well. So they helped me through that. So it was a great idea. In order to do it, we have to have instructors. So I had to suck them in and they had to go and get their instructor's license, go through education, take a ridiculously scary test. and get licensed as instructors. We have 4 licensed instructors as of now at the salon. And then again, all the red tape, so we can have 2 students per instructor and all the things that we have to do to be in ordinance of what they want us to do. They inspect us once a month, and it's a lot. So it took us about a year to get everybody licensed. The classroom has to be a certain size. It has to have a whiteboard, because that's important.
I love whiteboards.
Yeah, so we had to do all that. So that took about a year, and then we started the program, and we just had our first graduate about like a month ago.
Is she here?
I don't think so. Nope.
So
We
you
do
work.
have one student.
Heck yeah.
Give it up, Alicia.
Give it up, Alicia. So that's one thing I really want to drive home to everyone is you worked for 1 year for absolutely no money to get something you wanted later, right? My 3 things I said is give up something good, you had a good business for a great, now you have this great pool of people coming out of your school trained exactly how you want. And you told me the day they graduate, how far are they booked out?
So far. So the give up something good for something great goes both ways. So for the student, they literally have to give up their whole life. They're required to come to school 40 hours a week. So they come to school, they don't get paid for an entire year, and they work their butts off. They work really, really hard, and they don't get paid. I, as the salon does not get paid. The state doesn't allow us to charge tuition. So when they do services out on the floor, they charge a minimal fee, and we get to keep that because they don't get to keep what they're making. But in turn, that goes to the instructors, and the salon as itself makes no money. But in the end, the world has great hairstylists out there, and hopefully the biggest reason why we did this is to keep them in Mitchell.
That's so awesome. You just completely take control of your own life. Get up. Get up. Own your own business. You're so cool.
That's so good for our ego. He always tells me I'm cool.
I always tell everyone they're cool. I'm an over-complimenter, but people need to hear that stuff. There's so much negativity. I mean, I'll tell someone they're cool, they're doing a great job. I appreciate them. I tell everyone I love. Right before I hang up, I love you, bye. Just... My wife knows, she goes, you took you forever to tell me you love me. Now you tell the guy doing your HVAC system. Alright, so I'm going to get into a little more deeper questions now that everyone kind of knows your background. What do you do for continued education? I know you do a lot of stuff, but do you go to seminars, podcasts, books? What do you tell me about that?
We do a lot of education. That is probably the background of our world. The hairstylists, or just our whole industry in itself, is changing on a daily basis. I love change. So we change on a daily. We remodel all the time. Anything we can change, we change mostly, and they love it a lot. But we...
That's one thing I always say is, the only thing I never change is I make sure I'm changing all the time. The only thing that's constant is I always change.
Yes, so we are doing technical training all the time. We do business training all the time. We are just finally getting back in the world of traveling for our education. So we were doing that a ton, kind of took a halt, now we're back at it. Whatever we can find for education, we take on, and it doesn't have to just be in our industry. So like things like this, obviously, for sure. We like to just do anything that can build our culture, build who we are. Just like Spenser said, making us better makes what we do better.
That's awesome. I mean, continued education is so important because, like the 33% rule, right? Like you're teaching your hairstylist, they're teaching someone, and then you also have someone you're hiring out to reach up, because there's not always a mentor for you out there. So speaking of mentors, you have some mentors in your life?
I have so many mentors in my life.
Let's talk about it. How do you get so many?
So starting off, obviously, we were just talking about this in the lobby. My entire family is an entrepreneur family. I would call us. But between my husband and I, my brothers, my mom and my dad, lots of business happened in our lives. We just grew up learning that and learning all the what should be done, and how to work hard and how to get what we need. We have to work for what we're doing, and we learned that work ethic a lot at home with my dad and my mom. That's just how we grew up. Going forward from that, I am not a huge book person. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I'm a reach out to whoever I can reach out to kind of person. So there's a lot of other salon owners. I don't ever feel any other salon owners or anybody in my industry as competition. I'm always there to help them. They're always here to help me. It's just something that is you can totally learn from what they're doing. We're doing something totally different than what they're doing, so we can learn from each other. So I always like to do that. And then just the people that you meet, you just ask. Most of the time when you're doing something, somebody's already done it, and they've probably done it pretty good, so just do what they're doing. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Absolutely.
It's too hard.
So, sorry if I'm moving around too much, but one thing that I thought was really interesting is I had to cancel the last event. I felt so bummed I had to do it. And it was harder than I thought to reschedule. I had texted and called everyone. I was trying to schedule. I said, all right, Trish, send me a schedule of your next 3 months. How many days do you have available? Just send me the days. You sent me 5 days. In 90 days, you have 5 days. That's why we're here on a Tuesday, you guys. So, how do you juggle all that? And your why is your family, right? You're like, I'm not going to miss my kids' sporting event or whatever. You're there for your kids. Same for Justin.
Yep.
So, tell me about that.
My phone calendar is like all of my appointments and wherever every kid is and what they're doing. It's color coded and the whole 9 yards so that I know where I'm supposed to be when. It also, what somebody else always taught me was it shows you where you're spending the most of your time if you're color coding it, so you can kind of just take a glance at it and go, holy crap, I'm spending way too much time at work or whatever it may be. So that is one way. And I am a 100% paper and pen to-do list person every single day. I like to cross it off. I usually write things down that I already got done so I can cross it off because that
feels awesome, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels really good.
I do that too.
And yeah, this is like I do what I do, and I am growing my team to do what they do so that you can live a life like this that's flexible. And that is one of the things I think that came out of COVID was that is the lives that people are living. You have to have flexibility because you don't want to miss out on what your kids are doing. You don't want to miss out on life. My 100% motto every single time anybody asks me is just to be 100% present 100% of the time, and I tell my team that on a daily basis. If you are at home and you're with your kids, you have to be 100% present. If you're at work, be 100% present, give 100% of your time there. That way you're not spreading yourself too thin. That was probably one of my biggest obstacles I overcame 10 years ago. I was doing hair behind the chair. I was trying to run a business, and I was trying to be a mom of 3 kids, and trying to be a wife. Charlie gets the short end of the stick most days. And I was not really good at any of it. I was giving a little bit to everything. So I had to give up being behind the chair, which was probably one of the things that I loved the most, but nothing else could give. If I gave up running the salon, it would give up for everyone else. If I gave up, I can't give it to my kids. Sometimes I want to, but not today. Lincoln came, so he gets brownie points tonight. And so, you just have to give somewhere, and that's one of the things that you have to learn what is important.
Give it up. Come on, guys. So one important question that Spenser made fun of me that night on the last show is, one thing he told me to ask people is, if you could go back 10 years and tell yourself something you know now, what would you tell yourself back then? What's something you wish?
I wish that I would have paid attention to my money more. This truly is a passion of mine. So the money had never been important to me, and just the checks and balances and the profit loss and what happens at the bottom. That's stuff that I love to do. I majored in accounting, but it wasn't important to me, and money wasn't what was driving me to do what I was doing. So I was just giving everything that I could possibly give, but in the end, it was a hobby for many years because I didn't get paid. So now being further into this, knowing that the bottom line is what can make it be beneficial for everybody, what can make you give more, what can make you give more back to the community, what can make you give more benefits and health insurance and the stuff that's really needed in your businesses. If you're managing that, that's where you can start to get back to that stuff. So that was important. So I didn't see the importance of that right away.
You gotta make money so you can give it all away, right?
Absolutely.
How important is sales to you? I know, I'm sure Charlie had, maybe you guys talk about sales a little bit, but he was an absolutely fantastic manager for me. Changed a lot of things in how I sold, and he did such a great job. I'm sure you guys talk about it a lot. So how important is sales in your business and in your life?
We don't call it sales in our world because we're girls and we don't like to sell.
What do you call it?
So we educate what people need and want, and but it is 100% every single day what we do. So it is very important, and it is what we do on a daily basis. They just don't know that that's what they're doing.
When we talked about this, and I said, yeah, I was always so afraid to ask people, hey, do you want mud flaps or do you want like window tint? Because I had already just pissed them off for like, hey, I want a $300 payment. Well, here's $650 sign there. And by the way, do you want to buy a bunch of extra stuff? But I learned that if I don't sell them that extra stuff, in 2 or 3 months, they're going to be mad because they don't have it. So you probably have a lot of upsales and stuff.
So I say this all the time for a couple reasons. One, they're going to go buy their mud flaps somewhere else when they leave anyways. They're going to get it. So we always say if they don't leave with their hairspray, they're going to go somewhere else and buy their hairspray. So they need it. But also, I always use me as an example. If I use this example almost every time. If I'm going to go and get a massage, and I'm taking the time out of my day to do that and get that done, and they have signs up saying $5 add-on for aromatherapy or $5 add-on for CBD, I'm not really going to ask because I don't know if I should or do I need that, or I don't know, I'm kind of unquestioned. But if they say to me, do you want that? I'm going to say yes every time. And also, if they don't ask me and I leave, I'm going to be mad, like, why didn't they offer me that? I wanted that. No, my massage wasn't as good. Like you're always thinking that, and everybody's taking time out of their day to do their service that they're doing. And if you don't offer them everything, you're not giving them the full experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Give it up. Come on. How many people are in sales here? It should be every single one of you. We're all in sales. What's like the most important lesson you learned in the last 3 years? I think COVID was a big thing. So what did you learn that's so important in the last 3 years?
Yeah. Obviously COVID was involved. Was a big part of that. But I think the biggest part of that was realizing what is important and focusing on that. We talk about things like during COVID, we had a dress code before COVID. When COVID hit, I didn't care what you wear, or just show up, So like just the things that don't really matter, like you think they matter and they think they're a big deal, and then you get there and you're like, oh, that's not that big a deal. Why am I so worried about it? So just living in the moment and what is truly important.
So what are some habits and routines that you do like every single day?
My to-do list isn't every single day, for sure. I try to do it right away in the morning, because otherwise I'm like halfway through my day and I'm like, crap, I didn't do any of my to-do list yet. That's that, and then I feed off of people. So just being around the clients and our team and what's going on, that's what drives my day every single day. And then just making sure that, also same thing with my family, just making sure that it's like you're giving, again, back to the 100% present, but be giving quality time to what matters to you most. So that's what I try to balance. Somebody once said, and it's 100% true, there's never, ever, ever any balance in your work-life home balance. It's not ever a thing. It's what needs the attention for the day. But just making sure that you're giving the attention that needs to be given in that day.
What are some really important, you have a lot of employees. What are some of the most important qualities? So people that are still employees, or someone that's looking for someone maybe they haven't thought of. What are some things that are super important to you?
Employees?
Yeah, like an employee quality. You're like, man, I want this person, I definitely don't want that person. Dude.
Oh, man. No. I think that, you you'll see, I'll do an interview, and I will just talk to the person 100%. I write their name on the top of a piece of paper, and I write nothing else in the interview. I have good intentions of taking notes every single time I interview somebody, but my job in the first interview is just to feel them and get the vibe that whatever it is. And so it's just kind of just feeling that. My biggest thing I'm always looking for is passion in what they're doing, and life in general, just like having a go-getting at what they want to do. Then they go on to a second interview. That's with usually one of my managers. That's very a lot more detailed and more notes. But I'm always just looking for that fire and that passion. That's what I look for in every single person that comes through our door.
That's what I'm always looking for. Is like I hire a lot of contractors and stuff, and I get someone. And I'm like, hey, can you fix this? Like, well, I can't do that. And I can't. Well, here's your problem. It's like, dude, I don't want the problem. I want the solution. Like, can you do it or not? I'll pay you. I don't care. Just get it done.
Yeah.
So we're almost out of time. So the last question I want to ask is, you're in front of a lot of people. You probably do this all the time. But what's like the most important thing you want to tell all these people here?
I think after the last one, I think this was one of the things that kept going through my head. My biggest thing that I want to get out there is that in my career, my job now that I've grown through the positions that I've had in my space. So at Hollywood Style, I started out at Hollywood Style, even though I was the owner. I worked the front desk, and I worked behind the chair, and I worked through all of that. And my position that I'm in now is just growing more leaders. So being a leader, just no matter where you're at, you don't have to. People that own businesses are kind of weird, crazy people. Not everyone is cut out to do that. I like to tell our team that they get to show up to work and do what they love to do every single day, and then they just get to go home and have to do all the other crappy stuff behind the scenes, pay their taxes and order their product and all the stuff. So they get to do what they love every single day. Every single one of them, every single employee that works at Hollywood Style is a leader in some way and has grown from this position to this position to this position to this position. There's not an end. That's one of the things that's like my passion is always keeping that door open at the top, that they can grow as much as they want within their company that they work for. And I just, that's my passion and where I want to go with what I'm doing. And I just think that that opportunity is out there for every single person, no matter where you're working or what your career is.
Just give it your all no matter what.
Yeah.
Act like you're the owner even if you're not.
Absolutely.
So the last thing, talk about Hollywood Style and how cool it is so everyone knows.
Okay. Hollywood Style is really
You only have 1 minute and 40 seconds left.
Ooh, 1 minute and 45 seconds. No, Hollywood Style, we are, so we have Mitchell, Sioux Falls. We've had Sioux Falls for about 5 years now. Mitchell's been open for 13. That seems crazy. But we do all the services. We just started doing nails again in Mitchell because we have a nail student. See, this is what school does for you. It makes you do all the services that you didn't do before. So we do hair, nails, skin, eyelashes, whatever you want to get done, we can do it. Yeah, it's fantastic. I have no doubt the best out there. I know that.
Yeah,
we train them well.
Your salon's absolutely fantastic. Well, we better wrap this up because I'm already running late like I figured I was going to do. But so anyway, everyone, thank you so much. Give it up for Trish Bates, guys. Speaker, everyone go to the bathroom, get your concessions and stuff. We're going to play some music. You've got about 15 to 17 minutes. We're going to give away a whole bunch of stuff, and then we're going to get our last speaker. Alright, so the next speaker, I'm so super excited to bring out. This guy, I'm sure a lot of you know, I've talked about him a lot. He's been a huge, absolutely tremendous impact in my life, and I can't explain it enough. He does more for the community silently than most people will ever know. This guy has brought dozens and dozens of businesses to Mitchell. When you hear businesses are leaving Mitchell, the only reason we're not going backwards, like a net number, is because of this guy. He brings more people that come from Sioux Falls, Yankton, Aberdeen, and he rents to them. And we're going to explain how he does that. The journey in his life we're about to cover is one of the most fascinating tales I've ever heard. This guy's given up more stuff and sacrificed more than a lot of people I've ever met. He calls me almost every single day to check in on me. And that sounds really weird. But I love it. I'm like, he's the only guy I can actually, when he calls, I can explain to him my problems, and he gets it, and he knows how to, he knows how to talk me through it. I mean, a lot of weird stuff happens in my life. He does more behind the scenes deal than you'll ever know. He's been a mentor of mine for 4 or 5 years. I'm so lucky that he contacted me, because we always talk about mentors up here, and I am so lucky that one day he called me, or he messaged me on Facebook. I made a lot of videos on Facebook, and a lot of bad things and a lot of good things come out of those videos. I'm not going to talk about the bad things. One of the great things is he messaged me one day and says, I like what you're doing, and I want to help you out. You should come out and hang out with my wife and I at our house. And I was like, okay, cool, I've heard of him. He's awesome, total baller. And my wife gets home and I go, hey, she gets home from work and I go, hey, some guy I've never met before invited us to his house, and we're going to go hang out with him. She goes, hell yeah, we're leaving right now. And I was like, yup. So we go out there. And he's one of the main reasons I started this event. So in December, last December, so it's been 8 months, whatever now, he was like, man, I just don't feel like I'm doing enough. I'm like, dude, you're building units like crazy. You're one of the top developers in Mitchell. You're bringing tons of businesses to town. He's like, I just don't think I'm doing enough. I need some motivation. I felt I needed to get back to him a little bit. And I said, dude, I'll give you some motivation. I'll put on a seminar and I'll get you up there. Because I know how much he loves helping. He's just like me, but he's got much more experience than I do. So, enough of the intro. I'd like to bring him out. My mentor, one of my best friends, and someone that's helped me more than just about anybody in my entire life, Justin Thiesse, guys. Give it up for Justin Thiesse. Those sparks rolling to it. Yeah. Turn that back up a little bit. You got a microphone?
Thanks for the kind words.
No problem. Well, thank you so much for coming out. It's kind of weird how much I talk about you, but honestly, as I said before, will you start that count on the clock too, buddy? I'm an over-complimenter because it means a lot to me, because I want to tell people how important they are in my life. So I've said it a lot. There's a lot of people that mean a lot to me out there that I haven't mentioned, because the lights are really bright and I still can't see everyone. But almost every one of you has impacted me, one indirectly or directly, especially by buying tickets and being here tonight. None of you needed to be here. I'm going to start with a really weird story about you first that I didn't mention at all. We went to a seminar recently in Miami, Florida. And it was 5 o'clock in the morning. We're halfway across the country. It costs anywhere between $2,000 and $10,000 for a ticket. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Donald Trump's about to come out. We had no idea he was even going to be there. I'm in the lobby with 20,000 people. The first guy I talked to, I go, where are you from? And he goes, Texas, where are you from? I'm from South Dakota. He goes, oh, hey, I know a guy from South Dakota. He's like the storage king out there. I was like, really? What's his name? He goes, Justin Thiesse. Have you heard of him? I'm like, 20,000 people in Miami, Florida, and the first guy I meet knows you. That's awesome. Your networking skills are unbelievable. So I want to start off let's start about where you're at now. What do you do every day right now? Can you just tell them a little about, if you guys haven't heard of him?
Every day, right now. Well, me and my wife own all storage, and we're building business suites and storage units. So today we're doing a lot of renting out. Kind of the joke is, I always tell my wife when she fills up the units, we'll go to Brazilian Grill. But anyway, I owe her Brazilian Grill for the rest of my life. We don't have anything empty, and so we're building as fast as we can. We even cut out a little piece where we fenced off and did some outside units. it's completely full. We recently, you guys probably seen the Camel Supply on 12th and Main.
Saw that. Tim, my mic's not working. Go ahead.
Do you want to get real close? So recently we bought that, we remodeled that. A lot of people ask me what's going in there. Well, it's full. It hasn't been full in like 15 to 20 years, but it's completely full, and I think it looks great. So, is that working?
Sorry, yeah, I'm using Joy's mic. Tim's, I think, gonna fix mine, I'm not sure. But it's so cool what you do in this town because you bought that Camel Supply building. It had been empty for 15 years. Not empty, but it had been sitting there. And it wasn't for sale. You said, I'm gonna buy that. And you cold called them, or had someone call them and said, just make them an offer. Let's get this dang thing bought. Let's make this community beautiful.
Yeah, so that's what I do a lot of nowadays is drive around and come up with wild ideas. Or I look at stuff and go, God, that could be this, or you know. The one joke we have a lot is, before I build anything, I already know who my renter is. They always don't know it, but I let them know.
You're good at that. One day, you're like, I have a free bike for you. And I showed up to get a bike, and I left with a storage unit and like a box of roller skates or something. I bought everything. And it's like, I don't know how you do it. All right, so let's start with your first job outside of, what's your first job? Let's talk about, I want to talk about your roots. Actually, let's start, where'd you grow up? Tell me about your early life.
Okay, so I grew up in Mitchell, South Dakota. I grew up on a farm just 2 miles north of the hospital. I wasn't supposed to say my wife said.
Instead of saying say now. Your parents are here tonight.
Yes. So I grew up on a farm. I worked a lot of long hours, cutting hay, baling hay, all the stuff that I hate today. But I did learn how to work. I didn't have a choice.
Laughing, Steve.
Yeah, I never had a choice. You know, I had to work, so I couldn't give up. After that, I took a job at Kmart, and that was like a vacation for me. I loved it.
Why?
Well, you can meet a lot of girls there. And back then they had really good breakfast. So I loved having breakfast there every Saturday and Sunday morning.
Your first paycheck. Tell me about that.
So yeah, that was interesting. First paycheck I got from Kmart was in cash. And that seems really weird today because everything's automatic. But the first couple paychecks was cash. And I took my little deal up to the front desk and they gave me cash. So that's, that was in 1994-ish. So it's kind of a weird thought, but it didn't last, I think, a couple months, and then they started doing checks.
That's crazy. That even came right back then. So after that, you went to college. Your first jobs. Tell me the college story.
Okay, so I went to Mitchell Tech for satellite communications. It's no longer there. But anyway, a guy from Texas came up in January of my, I guess it'd be called senior year. And he said, I want to hire you now. So I went and talked to the teachers, and they said, well, if you take your finals, you can leave, but you got to get a B or better if you take your finals, and you can go whenever. So I did that. In February, I went to Texas, and I got, kind of the joke was, I had more money in my account. I had my college paid off before my classmates graduated, which was kind of cool.
You gave up something good for something great.
Exactly.
I love it. So let's talk about the first house you purchased, where you did pretty good on.
Okay, so I bought my first house when I was about 20 years old. Lake Campbell in Brookings, South Dakota. I was working for the phone company. And when I moved to Mitchell, 4 years later, we were moving to Mitchell. I was first employee at Mitchell Telecom, in case any of you guys don't know that.
And the first customer.
And the first customer.
The first customer.
I still have the phone number. I haven't let it go. I won't announce it. But yeah, you know, we cleared a little over 100,000 on that house, and you know, I was in my early 20s.
100,000 and 20s. Come on, guys.
And, back then, I was making probably 50,000, and I thought I was making a lot of money back then. So it was. I'm like, this is kind of cool. 100,000.
That's pretty good.
Tax free.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys know, if you live in a house for 2 years and you sell it and make money, you don't have to pay taxes on that money.
Because it's not capital gains. Good
Correct.
job, Dad.
Correct.
That's why in 2 years and 1 day, you're like, sell that house, you've been in it long enough. So I want to talk, I don't know if you guys know this story, but it's one of the most crazy stories, like the intro. So, you had an amazing job.
Correct.
You were making good money.
Yes.
And you sold a house on the lake.
Yeah.
And you moved in.
We moved into, well, it was Super Center Apartments is where we moved into. Joey lived there.
Joey, you live there.
I don't know. He did a lot of partying back then. We got along good. But yeah, it was Super Center Apartments. I changed the name to Village Point to try to get the stigmatism off there. We first bought it, and I joked with my wife, I'm going to have to start carrying a gun. You know, I'd seen everything but a guy blowing fire tonight, I think. And so I said, we're going to move in there, and we're going to make this work. And, you know, it was interesting. I think my kids lost a lot of friends over that deal. Their parents or friends' parents didn't want them coming to those apartments to visit them, which was kind of interesting. I still remember the first day I brought all the money home to my wife, and I sat it on the table, and I go, all right, well, I think we got to do like QuickBooks or something. And she's like, I mean, there's 30-some thousand in cash, basically all cash, and she's like, okay, so now what? I said, I don't know, but we need to get in the bank and pay the loan. And so she figured out QuickBooks in a hurry.
Way to go. So just to recap, you had an amazing job, you had health benefits, pension, everything. Everything you ever wanted, that most people want is like, hey, once I get here, I'm good. You gave all of it up.
Yeah, everyone said, why would you give that up? You have telephone benefits, and any of you guys that know telephone company benefits, you basically don't pay anything for health insurance. And I had a pension, which, you know, at the Rule 85, I was set, and a 401k, and I did, you know, at the end of the day, I didn't want to work for anyone.
So you lived in those apartments. You lived in those apartments, which I won't even do.
We lived there. I think my daughter still tells stories, because we dealt with a lot. I don't know if you guys remember, but Thirsties used to be in the mall, or the old mall, and it was like Walking Dead at night coming from the mall. People were just,
I worked at Thirsties when you owned those apartments. That was my fault.
you know, half the people would stop and pee, and they're all coming to my apartments, of course. And, well, some of them were going to the next apartment, and I don't know if you've seen that fence back there, but I built that wall, and I made the tenants pay for it. Anyway.
So how long did you hold it? 30 months?
Yeah, so I remodeled every apartment by myself. New kitchens, new bathrooms, new flooring, new hallways, new toilets in every single one of them, 54 apartments. I was determined to make it work, so in 30 months, I actually had sold it in 30 months from day one.
That's amazing. And you did all right.
I mean, it's not dirty to talk about money. I mean, we talked about that a little bit, but, you know, we made 7 figures off that deal, so.
So you gave up 6 figures to get 7. That's inspiring to me. Super inspiring.
Exactly. And, you know, we bought our house out by the lake. This time it's paid for.
So that's amazing. Now you have the actual dream. You gave up something. You gave up something good for something great several times.
Yeah, correct.
All right, so that's kind of your little life story. So we're going to go over some of the things we were talking about. What's the biggest struggle you had during your beginning years? It's a lot of the same as what I had.
So I had a lot of dreams and no money, and the bankers. You know, one of the jokes I think that we talk about a lot is, you know, when I talk to the bankers, I would say, well, if that kind of money sitting in my bank account, I sure the heck wouldn't need you. Basically, they wanted as much money as I need, wanted a loan as in my bank account.
You want to borrow $1 million? They want $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you get past that?
You just keep going until someone says yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how it works.
And don't
It is
stop.
how it works.
Don't stop.
I know boys have the same issue in your life.
What's some advice you had to unlearn? Bad advice you had to unlearn to get to a new level?
Everyone says you got to balance your life, shut off your phone when you get home. Usually people giving me that advice, were the ones that were still working for people and hated their job. And I don't know if they didn't want me to succeed but yeah, it was, have a life balance. And I rented more apartments after 5 o'clock than I ever did during the day.
I rented a motel room 45 minutes ago. Like right before I came on stage, I was like, yeah, hold on, let me get my guy to run your card. You can't say no, right? Most people won't answer the phone. You have
Exactly.
to. Almost every apartment I rent is on a weekend. That's where you can really make some serious money.
Yeah, I went to one of the competitors once and tried to rent an apartment just to see what it was like. And I couldn't even get an appointment with them. And it was owned by a group of investors. I think Boyd might have been one of the investors.
Silent partners.
But
First time you're ever silent.
one of the other investors, and I'm not picking on Boyd because he's a great guy.
He's awesome.
One of the other partners had come up to me and said, how come you're always full and the place I invested in is empty right now, or, has 20% vacancy? And I said, have you ever tried to rent one? He said, why would I do that? I own the place. I'm like, exactly.
Because most people have a job, and the only time they have available is noon to 1, and then after 5.
Exactly.
And that's the time they don't rent to you. So you have to take time out of your job or call some crazy idiot like us that will answer at 7 o'clock and meet you in a 1-bedroom apartment and take your money, right?
Exactly. It just goes back to what you talked about with sales.
Right.
You got to be available for the people that are looking to rent or buy.
Be present. What was one big success you had where you're like, heck yeah, I can do this? You big first one, like, this is what I need to do.
There's been a lot of small successes, but probably that big apartment complex when I made over $1 million. I was like, God, this is real.
It's crazy. Let's talk toilets. We talk about toilets all the time. There's a lot to be said about toilets.
Tuscany Huron.
Tuscany Huron, we both buy the same toilet. He talked me into the best toilet. One thing people, I know it's weird.
It's tall and it's elongated. How can you beat it?
You would love it. It's in your house, it's in our house. Everyone used to say, well, God, why would you want to be a landlord? You're going to have to go at 2 in the morning and go fix someone's toilet. My first thing was like, who's wrecking toilets at 2 in the morning? But second of all, I was like, well, I'm just going to replace the toilets. And you're the first guy I ever met that was like, yeah, I just replaced the toilets. I don't want to deal with it.
I think it all started where I was working in an apartment when I just bought those Village Point. And, you use one of those old toilets a couple times and you're like, I need to get a new toilet in this place.
Well, and it costs $75 to $100 to have a plumber go fix it on a service call. It costs $100 to replace it.
Yeah, exactly. And, I had the plumbers maybe replace 1 or 2 in the beginning because I didn't know what was going on. And I'd get a bill for like $300 for a toilet that they picked up at some plumbing shop. And I'm like, what in the world? I can buy the same toilet for $100.
Which leads me into my next thing. You call it shorthand syndrome. Let's talk about that.
A lot of this stuff we talk about, I wasn't going to bring up.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
No, we joke that a lot of people have deep pockets and short hands. And,
Can't reach the money.
they're so scared of spending the money, and for me I spend a lot of my money just, making stuff better. And so I don't have to worry about toilets or, like you said, if I want something fixed, I just fix it. And I tell you guys, just fix it. I don't ever want to hear about this ever again the rest of my life.
That's exactly how I am. And we talk about this a lot. you have you have your income, your expenses, and then your bottom line. A lot of people think the only way to increase your bottom line is to crunch your expenses and not spend any money. A lot of people forget about increasing your income. And one of the best ways to increase your income is give someone a fantastic product. Give them a nice toilet, give them a remodeled kitchen, give them an amazing storage with security. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And you talked about my rule, like if I went to put my daughter in a place, I don't want to own it. It was real easy to rent out Village Point because I said, well, I do live here, and so does my family. And so...
It's pretty safe. I mean, I live here. So on a day-to-day, what do you do to stay on top of your business and stay focused? Because you have a lot of stuff going on. How many of you guys have been to, like, what do you call it, Commerce Park? I just call it All Store. How many of you guys have been? You guys should drive out and look at it because it's unreal. So how do you stay on top of this? Because you always have a project going on. How do you stay on top?
You know, I start my day every day with, and you guys are going to laugh, but I work out every morning and listen to a podcast. So I've really enjoyed a new one, Mark Evans, making him a DM. He just had his birthday party a couple weeks ago in Ohio. I went out there and flew out there. And
you just flew back, right?
Boy, my arm's tired. Anyway, no, I just flew out there with some people anyway, and it was great. I mean, it was just great. And you get around the right people and the right mindsets.
How do you get in a room like that, right? Like the people you hang out with, and I always like, man, I can't believe you hang out with me because I was worth $5,000 when you reached out to me. And you've advanced my life 10 years as far as success and money and everything else. So how do you get in a room like that to meet with these people?
You become those people. You know, if you want to get in the Millionaires Club, you become a millionaire. If you want to become a Billionaires Club, you become a billionaire. You want to go to the real estate conference, you get involved in real estate.
One thing I always tell people is real estate's really, really hard until you get a seat at the table, and then you kind of, everything gets a little easier. Not much easier, but a little easier. And I just want to thank you for helping me get a seat at the table. That's how I truly feel I feel like I've become a real player in the game. And I'm nowhere near where you are, where a lot of people in this room are, but you've taken me to a whole other level, and I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. And I will say, Jordan's one of the few people that actually listens, not to everything I say, but he listens, he listens.
Everybody makes mistakes.
And, there's a lot of people that call me or message me and they ask what they should do, and then they do the opposite. And so it's, sometimes it's frustrating, but anytime, we talk, you basically just do it. And I'm not saying that I'm some sort of big expert up here.
But you've done it before, right? It's like here's the path, you know what I mean? Or else I'm just walking blind. You turn the light switch on for me and say, oh, okay, this is easy.
Yeah, and the first step is to, be present and ask questions and come to these conferences. Even if you leave tonight and you have one nugget that you leave with, I should do this different in my life, or whatever it is, and I always felt that way. Every time I went to a conference, I left with one little piece that just stuck in my head. And
it's worth every dollar.
Exactly.
What's your biggest struggle right now? What's holding you back?
Probably hiring people.
How do you get over that? Because you still have fantastic quality no matter what. You just make sure you're there every day, right?
Yeah, I know Trish talked about having a Sioux Falls store. We've talked about having storage in Sioux Falls. We've talked about having storage in other towns. I guess I need to get over being the expert at everything.
It's hard to let go.
Yep.
What's something you wish you knew 10 years ago?
You don't need insurance. You don't need retirement. You can buy all that stuff. You can buy health insurance. You can figure out ways to have something saved up for retirement. As always, you can't quit that job. You need health insurance. You can't quit that job. You need a retirement.
When I was growing up, my parents didn't have health insurance, and they said if you get hurt, you're grounded. So that's how I grew up, with no health insurance. I didn't have health insurance until like 5 or 6 years ago or 7, whenever I met my wife.
Yep.
So then I never had health insurance. It wasn't a thing to me.
And personally, I don't know a lot of people that have a 401k that can retire off of it.
I've never met a single person that has a 401k that's retired.
You know, even if you have $1 million in it, can you retire off that? How long are you going to live?
Long time.
I hope so.
What's something you do right before you don't want to do something?
My wife said don't say it, I think. But no, I usually say, Justin, stop being a little bitch and just get it done with.
Give it up, guys. Come on. Sorry, Stock market's taking a pretty big tank this year. How much money have you lost in stocks?
0.
Because you don't keep money in stocks. All right.
That's correct.
What do you do for personal development? I know you do a lot.
You know, my biggest thing is, podcasts, and even TikTok's been really good lately. I've been listening to podcasts, Mark Evans, of course, Grant Cardone, the real Bradley. I mean, he's awesome. I know we went to Cardone Growth Conference. That's phenomenal.
Just being in one of these,
Constantly networking. Yeah.
Constantly. If you guys have ever been to the Grant Cardone thing, it's super expensive, but it's worth it. Some of you people have been here before. Man, it's like this, but with 100 times more people, 1,000 times more people.
Did I mention the Lit Conference?
Yeah, no. What's the best money you've ever spent on personal development?
I don't remember that question.
You said Grant Cardone, I probably shouldn't have asked it. Let's just skip that. How important is sales to you, and how much do you use it?
I use sales every day.
Explain.
Like I said, whether you're selling yourself, whether, for everyone else, if you're trying to get a better job, you're trying to get management, you gotta sell yourself every day. And, or I sell myself, if I'm trying to run a business suite, I just talk about all the good things,
Like the Campbell Supply building, it sat empty for how long? Not full.
15 to 20 years.
How long after you bought it did it take you to fill it?
2 weeks.
That's crazy! How many businesses during the time? Just in that building?
Just in that building, 3 businesses, but,
Some are from Sioux Falls, right?
Yep.
And some of you guys don't hear about. He's bringing people from Sioux Falls and planting them here. That's awesome.
And then in the business suites, about 24. And on top of that, there's some other spaces out there that I rent that, there's a big electrical wholesaler that moved to town because of me.
That's awesome.
And they're going to probably build a great big building and hire lots of people.
I got one more question, then we're going to get into the quotes. You send me quotes in podcasts so much, I can't even hardly keep up with it, but I love it, so don't stop. One of your keys to success is answer the phone after 5 p.m. and on weekends. It's so hard for me to get a hold of a business during those times, so we talked about it a little bit, but just tell me how big of a key it played in your life.
It's huge because, even with All-Store, we get calls all night long for people not only wanting to rent storage units, but pay their bills at other storage units. So a lot of times we try to convert them over to All-Store if we have something to give them. But yeah, no, it's, just like you said, most of the people that I'm renting to are working people, and that's the majority of who we are. And so you got to be able to work around their schedule.
I love it. The quotes. We're going to talk about some quotes. I want you to elaborate them because you sent them to me. Only talk to yes people.
I don't have time for no people. A good example, there's lots of good examples. Jeremy, Paul, I think Victor's out there somewhere. Victor's really good at taking a lot of my shit. Victor Ridgway, top grade concrete.
Give it up for Victor.
But anyway, I just tell him to do something, and I don't care if he's got to cut down 10 trees or move 10 boulders. He just does it, and I never hear back. I just get a bill, and that's the kind of people I want to deal with.
Absolutely. Act like an owner, not like an employee, even if you are an employee.
That goes back to, when I was in the telephone company or any job you have, there was a lot of people that thought I owned Mitchell Telecom at one time because I was the only one that answered the phone, and I took care of everything. But that's one of the. But that got me also on the top, But yeah, I think with any job you have, you can't make certain decisions, but definitely act like you're an owner, and definitely act like you care about all your customers. Or, don't say it's not my job.
I hate that. It's not my job. The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah, I say that quote a lot. Because I get told, oh, you're so lucky. I think I've been told that by about 4 or 5 people in here I can see. But anyway, you're so lucky. You just drive around all day, and you're like a farmer. You just drive around and look at all your buildings. And I said, you have no idea what it took to get here. So, but yeah, so I always say, yeah, the harder I work, the luckier I get. Isn't that fun?
Money doesn't come to those who work for it.
Yeah, that quote, starting out, you've got to work for money, right? You got to pay, you've got bills to pay. You get to a certain level, I'm at that level where I don't work for money anymore. We've got this giant thing that just produces cash every day, every hour. We don't, I think Warren Buffett said you'll never be rich if you don't learn to make money when you sleep. And so we've got this giant thing just constantly pumping money, and some people call it a money tree, by the way. But yeah, no, it's called All Store, and so I don't worry about the money anymore.
Let's talk about All Store for 1 minute. We're running out of time. How many units was there when you bought it?
There's 160 units, and today it's 435.
So you've tripled it. In how long?
How long? I think we've only owned it 3 years.
That's crazy.
When we bought that, we were used to making some pretty good money on apartments, and there was a kind of a long stretch of buying and selling apartments before we got to All Store. When we bought it, it only penciled out to make like $1,500 a month. I was like, why are we buying this? That same facility today, we're going to talk about, it's making over $100,000 a month.
That's crazy. Give it up, guys. Come on. This is success. And it's not like just keeping it and buying a Lambo. Let's talk about your truck. I mean, the last truck you got was the first truck you've ever owned with leather seats.
Yes, I just got leather. I'm never going back. But yeah, no, and we talk about that. I sure don't feel like I'm in the top 10% of the 1%. I don't, but I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The greatest sign of intelligence is being willing to change.
Absolutely. There's so many things you can talk about with that, but you've got to realize that, times are changing, and you got to, keep up with technology. One of the greatest things we did with our storage units was put it online so you can rent a unit 24 hours a day, and we don't need anything to hands off. So I think with technology and just learning new ways, talking to people that are in your business already, and learning how they do things, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
All right, last one. Are you the man that you needed when you were growing up? Are you the man today that you needed when you were growing up?
Yes, with what we've done with real estate, me and my wife, we are there for our kids. We don't talk about all the stuff we do. Maybe I should, Right now, my son is homeschooled. We felt it was better to teach him more about life, more life lessons than what the school was teaching him. And so he's loving it, and he's doing great. And my daughter, she's very great. She's going to be a senior this year, but she won't even step foot in a high school. She's going to college. So.
Well, with that, I just want to say thank you for coming here. Thanks for being an amazing mentor. And thanks for being the guy I needed when I was growing up, and reaching out to me and just changing my life unbelievably.
That's
Give it
awesome.
up for Justin Thiesse, everyone.
Thank you.
That's the last speaker, guys. Thank you. Thank you, man. I gotta wrap up just a few things here real quick. Grab the wrong piece of paper. Thanks again. What do you guys think of the speakers tonight? First of all, now the reason I did this is to showcase how much amazing talent we have in this town. You, Trish, Spenser doesn't live in this town, but he did. There's a lot of people in here that are doing amazing, super amazing things. You got that song ready or what? And I'm gonna try to have as many of these as I possibly can because there's some amazing people I'm looking out right now that I'd love to get on the stage someday. People need to hear that stuff. So thanks again everyone for coming out. If you have any suggestions on the next one, please let me know. Take all the pictures and videos you can and put them on the internet so everyone can see them. And let's just take this city up a notch. If you have any questions, call, let me know. So let's breathe some life into the city and let's take it up, guys. Thank you so much.